Hello there. My name is Salim Javed and I'm an assistant professor at the Faculty of Mass Communication and Media Technology at SGT University. We are producing a series of videos which will help you understand some of the basic concepts and facts about cinema. In the last few videos, we have talked about Edward Muybridge and how his Finactiscope and Zoopraxiscope was working. Then we talked about Etienne Jules Murray and the chronophotographic gun and how 12 simultaneous photographs were taken in one go. Then we talked about Hannibal Goodwin and the use of first celluloid roll film. Then we also talked about Thomas Alva Edison and William Carnegie Laurie Dixon and their kinetograph, kinetoscope, phonokinetoscope, and how this entire system of movie making started. Then we talked about Andrew Holland, the first man who started making money from films, and he opened the first kinetoscope parlor. Then how this Lumiere brothers, Augustus and Louis Lumiere, on December 28, 1895, they organized the first paid public show at Café Capucine, Le Salon Indo de Café in Paris. Sklandolavsky brothers, which is Max and Emily Sklandolavsky from Germany, and how they started their bioscope. Then we talked about Robert William Paul and how his theatrograph, which is also known as animatograph also. Then we talk about Thomas Armet also, where his phantascope was taken by Thomas Alva Edison and the name was changed to Vitascope, and later on Thomas Alva Edison himself introduced a projectroscope in this entire thing. So this is so far we have talked about. Now let's talk about how it all started in Indian context. Now if we talk about in Indian context, the initial activity or the film related activities that's supposed to start, the first name that comes to our mind is of two people, the man Madhavrao Gopal Patwardhan and Madan Rao Madhavrao Pitale. So this Patwardhan and Pitale, these were two itinerant projectionists, and their show Sambari Karolika also. They prepared a painted multicolored glass slides and was made of 7 programs. So these 7 programs were basically of 3 hours of duration. It was projected with a lens and 3 magic lanterns, which not only created a continuity but also the semblance of movement. This activity is supposed to record, and the record says that it started as early as 13th September 1892 and lasted even after the arrival of cinema in India and lasted up till 1918. Now, when you talk about the arrival of cinema in India, the first name that comes to our mind is obviously Lumiere brothers, and how on 7 July 1896 at Watson Hotel, Mumbai, the 6 films were shown. Now, when you read books related to the history of early Indian cinema, there is a factual mistake. Now, what is that factual mistake? Now, that factual mistake is that in most of the books it is written that Lumiere brothers showed their 6 films on 7th of July 1896. And in fact, 2 newspapers, one was Times of India and the other was Bombay Gazette, and they released this thing on July 9th, 1896, and which says Mr. Lumiere brothers, who are on their way to Australia, are the exhibitors of the truly marvelous discovery. Now here the reviewer obviously mistook Lumiere assistant for the inventor, who incidentally never left France. Now understand this entire thing. When Lumiere brothers on 28 December 1895 showed their films in France, where this first public paid screening was held. Now after this screening, a lot of people, they came, and Lumiere brothers actually trained a lot of enthusiastic people. Now these enthusiastic people actually spread across the world, and this is how cinema actually reached to South Africa, Australia, and different other countries. When Marius Cesar, one of the assistants of Lumiere brothers, was en route to Australia, he took a halt in Bombay, and this is how Marius Cesaire on 7 July 1896 actually showed 6 films there in Watson Hotel in Mumbai. Now, this entire thing of Marius Cesaire, now Marius Cesaire was an assistant technically, or a trained person by Lumiere brothers. Lumiere brothers did not leave France. Like, I happened to attend a seminar where a senior film critic actually came, and he came up with a very wonderful story that how Lumiere's brother came to India and how one of the Lumiere brothers was abducted by Japanese. All these stories that you hear are not true. The fact is, Lumiere brothers never came to India. Now, Marius Cesaire. If you find about Marius Cesaire, he's a trained professional by Lumiere brothers, who happened to took a halt in Bombay, and this is how we saw our first 6 films. The films were Enter the Cinematograph, Arrival of the Train, The Sea Bath, A Demolition, Leaving the Factory. You know this film by Workers Leaving the Factory. So either Workers Leaving the Factory or Leaving the Factory, both names are correct. And then the 6th film was Ladies and the Soldiers on Wheel. Now, this entire the projection of these entire 6 films. Now, the entire show lasted not more than an hour, with each film 17 meter long, and there was a daily show, and the admission price was 1 rupee. 1 rupee may sound a very small amount today, but at that point of time, I'm talking about 1896, was a huge sum. Now, you must have, there is another fact. At different places you read that 4 ane was quoted, 1 rupee was quoted, 1 rupee as I'm saying it. At some places 2 rupees were quoted, and some places 4 rupees are quoted. But for this particular show, the initial charge was 1 rupee. And lot of people of high status, they came because it was 1 rupee initially, so not every commoner was able to afford it. And this is how, in fact, J.F. Madan also came. J.F. Madan also saw this. Now, after this, there was another interesting person called Harishchand Sakaram Bhatwadekar. Now, Harishchand Sakaram Bhatwadekar was one of the many people who saw these 6 films. Now, these 6 films which Marius Cesaire showed in India were basically called topicals, or the film that was shot by Lumiere brothers were called actualities. And these people, those who were trained by Lumiere brothers, they went to different places. They not only showed the film to audience, they actually shot films of those places also, and they sent those topicals to Lumiere brothers in Paris. And this is how Lumiere brothers in Paris, they created a kind of a reservoir or stock to sell further. So this is how this entire thing of training people by Lumiere brothers, and then sending it to different places. Then at those different places, films were showed, topicals or actualities as we call them, and those films were sent back to Lumiere's brothers, and this is how the reservoir was created. Now, Harishchand Sakaram Bhatwadekar was also one of the very few people actually who saw these films, these 6 films. Now, Harishchand Sakaram Bhatwadekar was a portrait photographer. Now, as he was a portrait photographer, so he was very much into the kind of new development that was happening in front of his own eyes, and he was able to catch hold and see that this is something which will pick up. So he he bought a camera and the processing equipment from England, and by the year between 1897 and 1899, he shot a wrestling match in Hanging Garden in Bombay. Now, before this, when he actually bought the camera, he was shooting films on daily events. But this film, Wrestling Match in Hanging Garden, is what people know much. And then in 1901, he interestingly recorded the arrival of R.P. Paranjpe. Now, R.P. Paranjpe was returning from Cambridge, and he shot this film, The Arrival of R.P. Paranjpe, or which was renamed as Return of Wrangler Paranjpe in 1902. In 1903, Harishchandra Sagaram Bhatvadekar, or he's popularly known as Bhatvadekar only, or Save Dada also. So, Harishchandra Sagaram Bhatvadekar, or only Bhatvadekar, or Save Dada. So, Bhatvadekar in 1903 actually filmed Delhi Darbar of Lord Curzon. Now, after Bhatvadekar, there is another very prominent personality called Hiralal Sen. Now, very little is written about Hiralal Sen, and you hardly find a book, or you actually find him only in research paper or in some books just peevishly mentioned. So that is like this man, Hiralal Sen, who brought such an important change in the history of early Indian cinema. People do not know much about Hiralal Sen. Now, Hiralal Sen also bought a cinematograph machine and opened Royal Bioscope Company in 1898. And this Royal Bioscope Company is India's first film company. So he's such an important man that he actually started India's first film company by the name of Royal Bioscope Company. Now, in 1903, he also shot a film, not exactly shot, I mean saying shot will be a very very hard statement. He captured Ali Baba and 40 Thieves, Ali Baba Chalis Chor. Now, but in 1904 he did something very interesting, and just because of this development, people actually know, people actually talk about him. So earlier than this, 1904, he was shooting plays and everything. Now, why I'm saying shooting plays, we'll pick this up, shooting plays, why I'm using this word called shooting plays. Now, before that, he was in buying films from England of all sorts and showing films to different events and birthday parties or other kind of events at rich people. But Hiralal Sen did something very interesting in 1904. He captured a public rally opposing Lord Curzon. Actually, he was in a plan to divide Bengal, which eventually he did. It is considered as one of the first political documentary by many. So this is a very important development. But unfortunately, on October 24, 1917, several years, almost after 13 years, a fire in a godown in West Kolkata actually destroyed all his film. He's considered as the first filmmaker of the subcontinent. Now, another important gentleman is by the name of Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali. Now, Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali, this is one name by the way, these are not two people. So, Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali was showing his bioscope all throughout South Asia from 1901 to 1907. Almost all films that were shown in his tent, he used to show films in tent house, in tent. So, and the width and length of that tent was 100 by 50 feet. Now, what he used to do, he used to import films. Now, understand, like Hiralal Sen, or for that matter, Bhatvadekar, Hiralal Sen, and now Abdul Ali and Yusuf Ali, they all were importing films. And they were shooting at their own, but obviously this narrative thing has not started till this time. So, Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali used to import films of all kinds from all the places possible, and he used to bunch, and this is very interesting, and he used to bunch 40 to 50 films in one go. And this is how people used to see films for arts. Now, why people were seeing films for arts. Now, I tell you a very interesting anecdote here. Before cinema, we had a kind of a culture in which we were seeing theaters. And if you know the history of theater, at least at the point that I'm talking about, people were in a habit of seeing long plays or running for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours. So this point that clubbing of 40 and 50 films together and showing it to audience, actually this particular duration is to satiate the kind of demand that audience had. So there is a kind of a flow. So it's not only that films have affected cinema. Cinema is being affected by theatre a lot of time, and especially initially also. Now this Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali is important in another context also. In 1914, he, along with one of his partners, actually bought a cinema hall called Alexandra, and after some time, he bought a very interesting cinema hall. There is interesting about cinema hall. The fact is interesting about the cinema hall. Cinema hall is a cinema hall. He bought Majestic Cinema. And now this Majestic Cinema is, when I'll talk about Alam Ara, which is basically the first talkies of India. Now this Alam Ara was actually shown in Majestic Cinema. So this is how, and that Majestic Cinema is owned by Abdul Ali and Yusuf Ali. Now, so far we have talked about Patwardhan and Pathankar, then we talked about Bhatwadekar, then we talked about Hiralal Sen, then we talked about Abdul Ali Yusuf Ali. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 very important people, and I call it Trinity, and that Trinity is basically J.F. Madan. Then second person in that trinity is Baburao Painter, and above all we have Dada Saheb Phalke. So if you are talking about the early history of Indian cinema, and if you do not talk about this trinity, no history of earlier Indian cinema is possible. So now let's start with J.F. Madan. Now, J.F. Madan is basically a Parsi who was born in Bombay and the first film mogul of India. Now, this first film mogul of India is basically into different kinds of businesses, and film was one of them. He was into theatre, obviously Parsi theatre, and you will later on understand the influence of Parsi theatre on Indian cinema when talkies start. So, J.F. Madan, Jamshedji Farhamji Madan, he started a bioscope company by the name of Elphinstone in 1902. Now, by 1907, he built actually the first permanent theatre in Kolkata in 1907, again by the name of Elphinstone Picture Palace, which later on becomes the first milestone of his cinema chain, and I'll talk about it. So now, because he was into theatre, he was one of the agents of Pathé also, he was into wine business also, he was into delivering, supplying material to army, he was into supplying the material to army also. As he had like a lot of businesses, then he got into filmmaking activity also. Now, very interesting thing about J.F. Madan was that he was already into theatre. So he had his company, he had everything, and then later on, when he was one of the invitee in the preview of Raja Harishchandra, and he was already in business, and he saw the film, a film made by an Indian, absolutely 100% indigenous product. So as he was in the business, so he decided, after watching Raja Harishchandra, he actually decided to go for his film production also. Before that, he was into so many other businesses. So as he had a strong background in theatre, he actually had a lot of creative people by his side. Now, people like Gauhar Jan or Agha Khan Kashmiri, the famous Urdu playwright, was by his side. And by 1919, after watching Raja Harishchandra, so if you talk about 1902, The Elphinstone Bioscope started when you are talking about 1907, the first permanent theatre came up. Then he had a strong background, and then later on, he by 1919 actually Madan, like one of a very interesting character. When you talk about Madan, there are a lot of interesting characters. Brandman. Brandman is very interesting. M. Brandman is very interesting characters. Now, if you read Madan carefully, you know his story is as if you are watching a film in itself. You know, there are two wonderful people. At one end you have Brandman, on another at another side you have J.F. Madan. They are competing for the entertainment market. So this may sound very contemporary, but I'm talking about 1919 right now. Now Brandman and J.F. Madan, they were competing for the entertainment market, their share of entertainment market, and they have touring groups. Like a lot of people complain that we do not have a lot of systems in a lot of entertainment forms in India, but that's not true. You have touring systems in India at this point of time, where J.F. Madan was pulling people on his side and Brandman was pulling people on his side, and they were floating public limited company. In 1919 they were floating public limited companies, and if you look at this Madan Theatres Limited, it is a company which basically formed on the basis of which basically formed later on Madan Empire. Now, what they did when they were floating this public limited company, they actually issued much broader capital. They issued a lot of public issues, and that helped them generate a lot of money. And this money acquired actually helped Madan company to acquire more companies. And the initial capital, you won't believe the amount. I'm talking about 1919 and 1920s and 1921 of that time. You won't believe the kind of amount that was made or that was invested was 100 lakh. You know, 1 crore at that point of time, an amount which is like becomes difficult to understand in 1919 and 1921. 1 crore rupees was there, which was the initial amount. And Madan acquired not only cinemas in India, but in Ceylon, in Burma. So, and he had a chain of 120 cinemas across India, and he was able to, you know, invite not only brilliant Indian technicians, but brilliant technicians from all around the world. Now think of something that when you have the money, when you have resources, when you have Aga Khan Kashmiri by your side, or Gohar Jan by your side, and the entire legacy of brilliant people from theatre, what would you do with this money, with this creativity, with this all the resources available? Madan Enterprise, Madan Company at its prime was producing 7 to 10 excellent films every year. 7 to 10 excellent films every year. So where a lot of Indian, a lot of foreigners, a lot of like you name it and they have it kind of a thing was there. Now, why Madan is important in the history of Indian cinema? Now, Madan is the only man, and I'm taking this liberty to say so, Madan is the only man who actually brought a business stability, or he is the one who presented a very different kind of a business model to Indian film industry. Now, think of a time when you are not developed as a film industry. think of a time when you are just experimenting with forms and equipments and with raw stock, like after this Raja Harishchandra, which was released in 1913. Immediately after that, World War I started. Now, there was a scarcity of stock also. Now, think of a man who is able to float a public limited company, who was able to make a lot of money, and he was churning out 7 to 10 films on a yearly basis, and this was the epitome of technical excellence. Epitome of technical excellence that any industry, forget that I'm talking about Indian industry, can talk about. Now, this is something remarkable. And then, after the death of J.F. Madan, his son J.J. Madan actually took his legacy forward. He was one of 5 sons of J.J. Madan. So J.J. Madan is father, J.F. Madan is father, and J.J. Madan is son. Now, he too did international collaboration, but unfortunately, in year 1925, there was a fire, and which actually, completely destroyed all the films that we have. Now, there is another very important detail that I'll talk about Pundlik and Raja Harishchandra in next video, and we'll see how there is a debate that which film should settle down as the first talkie of India. Thank you.